What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of 90 Day Fiancé The Other Way, Season 4, Episode 6. So let's get into Gabriel and Isabel. So they are on their way to a plastic surgeon for a consultation because Gabriel wants to have top surgery, which is the removal of the breast. He already had bottom surgery done, and he talks about that in great detail because the doctor was asking a lot of questions about that. And he had that done, but there were some complications. He had to have 3 surgeries done. He had issues with urination. But after all of that, and I think it was very traumatic for him as well. So after all of that, at the end of the day, he got the surgery done and he's now satisfied with his bottom surgery. So the plastic surgeon asked him, well, why did you get the bottom part done before the top? Because most trans men will do the top surgery first because it's, the breasts are the most obvious and they're most noticeable. So they want to get rid of that first. And he said, well, with him, his breasts were not that big. So he really wasn't concerned about the top surgery as he was about the bottom surgery. So when the doctor looked at his chest, which they showed on the show, there wasn't a lot of breast tissue there. So it was kind of like, do you really need the top surgery? Because there wasn't a lot of breast tissue there. And Gabe said that yes, he does want the surgery because when he's in certain positions, like when he's bent over, he thinks that they're a lot more noticeable. And so he wants to get that corrected and he wants to have a complete masculine looking chest. And so the doctor was like, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. That's no issue. Gabriel is worried about the scarring, which I don't know how that can be avoided, but he is worried about the scars that the surgery is going to leave on him. And he's wondering if the surgery is worth having those scars. And I think maybe the reason why I might be worried about the scars, I don't know if he talked about it on the show, but my assumption is that the scars are a telltale sign that you had top surgery and that you were once a woman. And maybe he just doesn't want to be reminded of that or doesn't want people questioning him about that. And so then they talk about the cost of the surgery, which is going to be about $3,000, which is absolutely nothing compared to what it might cost in the United States. In the United States, it's probably 10 times that at least, easily. So later on, him and Isabel are having a conversation. Oh, by the way, Isabel says that his body is perfect. She doesn't have any issues with his body, and it's up to him of whether or not he wants to have the top surgery, but she has no qualms at all about how he looks physically. So later on, Gabriel and Isabel are having a conversation, and the conversation is mainly about his phalloplasty. And she's satisfied with him. She was like, you know what, no changes are needed. She's very satisfied with everything. And Isabel says in her confessional that she really enjoys these conversations with Gabriel. She loves asking him questions. She loves knowing more and more about it. She has a very healthy curiosity about his transition. And for a tiny, tiny second, I thought to myself, is she interested in him because she kind of sees him as, this medical anomaly, where she's kind of like more fascinated with the transition process than she is with him as a person. But I think that, I concluded that, yes, she does love him for who he is, not so much because of what he went through. He's more than just a curiosity to her. And I'm like, yeah, she does love him for who he is. So she's asking like a ton of questions about that. One of the questions that she asked is, how did he feel after his bottom surgery? And he said that at first he wasn't happy with it. He says that he thought it was ugly. He thought that it was going to fall off or that it was going to get trapped. Like when he's intimate with a woman, he thought it was going to get trapped in there. So but now he says he likes it. He has no issues with it. It works, it functions, it does everything that it needs to do. And they went into a lot more detail. Okay, they went into a lot more detail about his anatomy and the things that it does and doesn't do, etc., etc. But I'm not going to go into that on this channel. Let's just say that doctors are absolute miracle workers in being able to give people what they want to feel more comfortable in their skin. Moving on to Nicole and Mahmoud. Nicole and Mahmoud gave me another headache. I have to sit there with like a couple of aspirins every time I watch Nicole and Mahmoud because I don't understand how people can argue this much and still want to be together. What is keeping y'all together? Y'all argue like cats and dogs. We have yet to see them in a scene where they are not arguing. And if by chance we're watching them and they're not arguing, you're on pins and needles because you're like, I'm wondering if they're gonna break out into a fight. I'm wondering if this is the beginning of an argument. You're like nervous and anxious, thinking that they're gonna start arguing in a minute, which they end up doing. They do. They argue all the time. So this is how their scene starts off. They're talking about opening up or starting a business for fashionably modest clothing because she doesn't like the clothing, the modest clothing that she's been seeing, because she's very fashionable and she wants to be stylish, and what she has or what she sees is not stylish enough for her. So they're thinking about starting a company where they design modest clothing that's also very trendy and fashionable, etc. Now, she has a background in fashion. He's got relatives that are in the clothing industry. So it seems like a perfect match if they could just stop arguing enough to get the business started. So while they're talking about the business, they start talking about how she dresses and the fact that she doesn't want to wear a hijab. She doesn't want to cover her head. And he tells her that he prefers for her to cover her head. And so, she says she doesn't like it. It's too hot. It makes her uncomfortable. Mahmoud says that she had promised before to cover her hair, but now she's changed her mind. Nicole says that Mahmoud himself had also made certain promises or certain exceptions that now he's changing his mind on. And the example that she gives is that she said that at one point he was okay with her wearing short sleeves. And he said, I've never been okay with you wearing short sleeves. And she says, yes, you were, because I would send you pictures of myself in short sleeves and you're okay with it. And he said, the pictures you sent me, you were wearing a jacket. You were covered up. I never saw you with just short sleeves, and I would never be okay with that. So they start arguing about that. The discussion gets so bad that, he's cussing and he ends up walking away. He walks into the next room. She follows him into the next room to continue the argument. So he puts his foot down and he says to her, you know what, I'm not going to budge on the clothing. You know what I expect of you. That's what I want, and I'm not going to change. And she says, well, I'm not going to change either. And then he says, well, then we can't be together. And so she says, fine, but don't have me come all the way over here just to tell me that you don't want to be with me. And I was confused because I'm like, what does you coming there have to do with him? Because I thought she went to Egypt on her own. Like, she actually, I kind of surprised him by telling him that she was coming back to Egypt to be with him, because I think when she left the first time, he thought he was never going to see her again. And when she returned, it was her own idea to go back. It's not like he told her to come back or forced her to come back. So I don't know what she meant when she said, well, don't have me come back over here just to tell me that you don't want to be with me. So he has to go take a breather. He leaves the house to go take a walk or something. Nicole tells us that she's come to the conclusion that Mahmoud doesn't accept her for who she is, but he just expects her to fit into some type of ideal image of what he thinks a wife should be or what he thinks a wife is. Yeah, he has an expectation of his wife. He wants his wife to be Muslim and following the culture and the religion and whatever. That's what he's expecting. Yes, Nicole, you're 100% right. So I don't know why this is a shock to her. So Mahmoud comes back. And when he comes back, they argue some more. So as they're arguing, he walks away. And she says to him, this is what you do all the time. You just walk away. And he says, I walk away because I don't want to argue anymore. That's why I'm walking away. So she gets mad. And then they argue about whether or not he really wants her to stay in Egypt. And he says to her, of course I want you to stay. And then she goes, well, I'll stay, but I'm not going to stay under your conditions. I'm not going to stay under your conditions. Then she calls him an a-hole or something. And I'm just like, y'all, can y'all please go to the nearest courthouse and file a divorce and do what y'all got to do? Or Nicole, can you go get a ticket and come back to the United States? Because this is not working. It's not working for y'all, and it's not working for us. So what are we doing? One of the things about 90 Day Fiancé that's interesting to watch is to see, especially 90 Day Fiancé the other way, is to see Americans get acclimated to a country that they've never been to before, and learning the culture, learning the language, and figuring out whether or not this is a fit for them. They stay in this house and they argue nonstop. And it's like they can't even get started on their marriage. She can't even get started on her life in Egypt because she's so hung up on, she can't dress like this, she can't dress like that. He wants her to put this on and not. It's just, it's just absolute nonsense. And I need for her to just get on a plane and come back, get a divorce. It's okay. You don't have to be on the show anymore. It's not worth it. It's not worth your mental health or emotional health to go through this, because he's so frustrated. She's even more frustrated. And I'm stick. No, it's not going to work. Nicole, Mahmoud, please get a divorce. Nicole, come back to the United States. Moving on to Jen and Rishi. So Jen is in a workout class, and she's actually friends with the instructor. When she was in India before, a couple of years before, she met this instructor, taking his classes to work out, etc., etc., and they became friends. So now that she's back, she, resumed taking his classes again. And after they get done with the workout, they have a conversation. And so she tells him about her issues with Rishi. She said that she confronted him about him lying, about the family finding a wife for him. Rishi had told her that he didn't want to lose her, and that's the reason why he lied. Because he says, I didn't want to lose you. If I told you the truth, that my family was looking for a wife, then you wouldn't want to be with me anymore. So Rishi had promised her that there were no more lies, and he was going to be, upfront and honest with her moving forward. So Jennifer asked her friend if Rishi's family will ever accept her. And the friend says it all depends on Rishi, basically how he sells you to his family. If he does a good job in selling the relationship to his family, then they'll be more accepting of you. So then the friend tells us in his confessional, he says that Rishi is making a fool of her. And if he really does love her, he'll let everybody know. He wouldn't keep her a secret. Okay. So Rishi then later on, Rishi and Jen, they go to this, it was some type of a kite festival. It was celebrating God waking up after 1 month of sleep. And I'm like, that's my kind of God. What religion is that? Let me sign up. So they're doing this kite thing. They're getting along. Everything is fine. And then they have a conversation. So Jennifer wants to know if Rishi's family already knows that he's going to choose his own wife. And so if they know that, why do they have to wait to get married? So she's asking some very real questions, but he's not giving her any real answers. So Rishi says that he needs time for the family and Jen to get to know each other. So then he suggests her living with his family. And I'm thinking he wants her to live with the family so that the family can see that despite her white skin and her American background, she can live as an Indian wife. I think that's why he has suggested her living with his family, because he thinks that she will do the things that she's supposed to do as an Indian wife, the cooking, the cleaning, all of that. And then his family would be like, oh, okay, we get it now. Even though she's a white woman, she is like a traditional Indian wife and we accept her. I think that's why he wanted her to come live with his family. And she's like, I'm not going to live with your family if we're not married first. And obviously he can't marry her until his family accepts her. So then he suggests, why don't you go live with my friend's family, live with them just to see how Indian culture is. And then, we'll go from there. And so she says, okay, so basically you want me to take some wife training, some Indian wife lessons. And that's what it boils down to. So they go to the friend's family's house, to the friend's house, and they get there, and the friend's wife is going to teach her all the things that you're supposed to do as an Indian wife. So you have to wake up at the crack of dawn. You have to get the tea ready, get breakfast ready. You have to serve the men first. The men have to be served and have to eat first before the women can. The Indian wife talked about, massaging people's legs or something. How as a wife, you are subservient to your husband. And the Indian wife was like, I don't know if Jen is going to be able to live this type of lifestyle, because in India there is no equality between men and women. There's a hierarchy and women are not at the top. And in her country where she's from, there is equality between men and women. So it doesn't seem like to me that she's going to be able to, handle life here in India. And sure enough, Jen has some issues with it, because Jen says, I did not go to school to get 2 master's degree just to be somebody's maid. But if you want to be married to Rishi, yeah. So she had this impression that because Rishi in the beginning when they first met, and it's totally legit that she felt this way, that he knew what she was all about. She's an American woman with American values, and he was still attracted to her, and he still wanted to be with her. So she was under the impression that he was going to marry her, they would get married and live this life, this non-traditional life, right? That's what she was expecting. But he's kind of letting her know now that he wants her to live like a traditional Indian wife, the cooking and the cleaning and all of that stuff. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. But why wasn't this stuff clear before they got engaged? Why didn't they have this discussion before they got engaged? Because it seems like she's just going on assumptions that she was going to stay to her true self, live her regular American life in India. And he's thinking that she's going to transition from a westernized woman to a traditional Indian woman, cooking and cleaning and scrubbing floors and serving her man and, washing his feet. And I'm just like, why didn't y'all talk about this before y'all got engaged? Anyways, Jen, pack your bags and come back home. Stop playing around. This is what I told the first Jenny. Pack your bags and come back home. Quit playing around. Unless Rishi's going to say, you know what, I'm going to accept you as you are. You don't have to be a traditional Indian wife. I don't give a damn what my parents think about you. We're going to get married. We're going to live our life. We're going to do what the hell we want to do. I'll cook for you. You'll cook for me. We're going to live like the way life is in America, but it's just in India. Moving on to Debbie and Osama. So Debbie finally arrives in Morocco, y'all. Osama's waiting for her with this one little pathetic flower that he picked up from the side of the road. And Debbie tells us that she's going to allow Osama to take the lead of when they get married, but she wants to get married in a month. How is that letting him take the lead if you already have kind of like a date set in your head? Their reunion or their meeting up or whatever you want to call it at the airport, it wasn't very emotional. It was a little bit underwhelming. It felt very stagey when they first met. It didn't seem, because usually, they're running towards one another. The woman is like jumping into her man's arms or hugging and kissing and crying. And, it wasn't like that. It was very stagey. This is the reason why I believe Deborah and Osama are not a real couple. They're either actors or they understood the Bravo assignment and they were just going to go by this script. I just don't believe that this is a real couple. I don't buy it. I don't believe it at all. So he tells her that he called her an angel. He said that heaven sent him this angel that was going to save him. He's a poet, he's a writer, he's an artist. So he talks in this very, poetic type of language, very flowy, very emotional, whatever you want to call it. So, because don't pay Osama no mind with the stuff that he's saying. So then she says something about, oh, look at us, look at us. This is a very strange, look at our strange connection. And he says, yes, it's strange, but yet it's still beautiful. And then she says to him, you're my strange beautiful. And he says to her, no, you're my strange beautiful. Gag me. Just gag me. To see this 67-year-old woman and this 24-year-old kid talking to each other like this, honey, I can't take it. Moving on to Chris and Jamie. Chris says in her confessional, I can't believe I've already been in Colombia for 3 whole days. Why not? It's only been 3 days. Why can't you believe that? So they go furniture shopping for their apartment. They have very different aesthetics. So I don't know how they're going to, compromise on that. So then Chris tells Jamie that she has to go back to Alabama around the time of their wedding because she's got a court case. Somebody stole her $50,000 motorcycle and she wants the person prosecuted. So at first she didn't think that she would have to go back to testify or be a witness, but now she's finding out that she does have to go back and be part of the whole court process, and it's going to be around the time that they're supposed to be getting married. So she tells Jamie, we're going to have to change our wedding date. Now Jamie gets extremely worried about this because she feels like when Chris goes back to Alabama, she's not going to come back because she has a history of ghosting her. So she's very scared about that. Chris tries to reassure her that she is going to come back. She's not going to ghost her, etc., etc. So now the next day, day 4, Chris is in a lot of pain. She had, this bad accident years ago, which left her with chronic back and neck pain. And so her pain has, reared its ugly head, and she's in a lot of pain. But she still, goes on to the flea market with Jamie because she knows that Jamie wanted to go to the flea market. So she decides to go to make Jamie happy. They get there. Chris cannot even get out of the car. She's in so much pain. So then she has to go back home. They go back home, and Jamie calls the doctor. The doctor comes, examines her, checks her out, and gives her a shot for the pain, and tells her, you have two options. You're either going to get the surgery that you need to get, or you're going to live with this pain for the rest of your life. Jamie is crying because, she sees her partner is in pain. She feels helpless, doesn't know what to do. It's just a lot. It's a lot going on. And Jamie did not sign up for this. Jamie, thought she was going to have like a normal relationship, and, things were just going to be hunky-dory. But there's a lot of challenges in this relationship with Chris. A lot of challenges. Moving on to Danielle and Johann. So Danielle's, okay, besides what's going on the show, Danielle has been involved in some controversy. Because what I saw was Danielle, I don't know if it was on her Instagram or what, but she was on her social media, going back and forth with her fans, talking about how people were accusing her of lying to Johann, telling Johann that she had promised him that they would come and live in the United States. And Danielle had said to the fans or to the people watching her that she had never made promises to Johann that they would live in the United States. And then she was like, show me where on the show I said that I was going to come back to the United States with him. And they showed it to her. Somebody found it and they sent it to her, or they showed it on the internet of her in a confessional talking about how she had promised Johann that they would live in the United States. So, she's looking like a liar to her fans, or whatever you want to call it. But anyways, getting on to the show now. So after they have their fight, because she was upset with him not telling her that his ex did not have a miscarriage with his baby, his ex had actually terminated the pregnancy. And so she was upset that he never told her that it was a termination, but instead lied to her and told her it was a miscarriage. So they had an argument. He didn't even come home. He went to go sleep at his family's house. The next morning, he comes back with a flower, which looked a whole lot better than the flower Osama gave Debbie. And he gives her this beautiful flower, and he explains to her why he told her what he told her. He said that when he found out that his ex was pregnant, he was really excited that he was going to have a baby. And when he found out that the ex had terminated the pregnancy, it was very devastating to him, and he just didn't want to have to talk about it. I mean, that's it. It was too emotional for him. It was too painful for him to talk about. So Danielle says, I'm not mad about what happened. I'm mad at your reaction to me when I asked you about it. You were very, what does she say? Defensive and angry. So he apologizes. They kiss and they make up, and, all's well again in the land of Danielle and Johann. That is my review. I really do appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.